should read this a little bit more closely, this excerpt from Luke. We kind of take it for granted. We read about it and we say, yeah, Mary was with child, they went to Bethlehem, and the baby was born in a manger, and so on and so forth. But when you stop to think about it, okay, Mary was about 9 months pregnant. How do you feel when you're 9 months pregnant? Men, don't answer this. How would you feel about riding a donkey or walking about 80 miles when you're 9 months pregnant? When you're 14 years old? That takes a lot of courage, doesn't it? We men will never know how that is. Oh, we'll find out some way or another, but in the meantime, we won't know. A lot of adversity, a lot of challenges. It seems when you read the gospel, Joseph is told by angels to move here, to move there, and he's like, okay, I'm done with the traveling. Let's just situate for a while. And so they do. They settle in Bethlehem. That's a safe place. That's the birthplace. That's David's city. That's the descendants of Joseph and Jesus. Well, ancestors, I should say. That's an interesting scenario. Quirinius, Augustus was trying to take a census, first time, and you wonder why that was going on. The Roman government had a big hold on a lot of land. They held a lot of property. They held a lot of power. And yet, they were checking everybody in by name, registering people. Why do you suppose they were doing that? I'll come back to that. After Joseph, a different Joseph, the one of coat of many colors, was in Egypt for a while, and his family and generations went on, and the Pharaoh forgot about Joseph and all these good things that Joseph did. The Israelites were under the Pharaoh's thumb. The Pharaoh had all he could ever want, all he could ever need, and yet he couldn't sleep at night. He was worried about losing all that he had. And so he made the slaves work even harder. He pressed them even more because he was afraid of losing what he had. The more he had, the more fear he had. And so they oppressed the people. And finally they cried out to God, and God took them out, took them away. After giving Pharaoh several chances with all the plagues to change his mind, but that didn't happen because the fear was too great. He couldn't change his heart. And so they left. Israelites in the desert, they're wandering around for a bit, 40 years. After a while, they're thinking, I'm hungry. There's nothing out here. So God provides the what it is. What is it? The manna. And some quail and some water. And every time they cry out to the Lord, God is answering with something. God is always providing. He says, no, wait a minute now. Take enough manna for the morning because the Sabbath, you don't want you gathering manna on the Sabbath, so take what you need. Well, some people are afraid of not having enough, so they took more than they should have. And so what happened? Worms and maggots and everything else destroyed what they had, the surplus they had. They should have trusted in what God was providing for them. They became fearful. They wanted to keep what they had, so God took away what they had. Trust in God is what he was trying to get across. Let's move to Solomon's time. Solomon is known for what? Riches and wisdom. And how did Solomon get all those things? It's not really said in the Bible, but he would use whatever means he could. He was wise to the world, and so he used whatever resources he could to gain more and collect more and get more, acquire more and acquire more. Good things didn't happen after a while. What happens to a country, to a people who are in anxiety, in fear? The walls come up. Describe 9/11. What happened right after 9/11? Other than the churches were packed to the gills with people wanting to know what the heck is going on and where God stands in all this. What was our stance as a nation? Homeland security, better checks through airports. We start looking at Arab people and we start targeting people because we're what? We're afraid. This is like a rape in our own land. People are killed and we'd have nothing to do about it. So we put up our barriers. Fear pervades, and we set parameters so that we don't get hurt again. We do that in our own relationships. We get afraid of getting hurt, so we put up walls, keeping our distance so that no one can get near us. Then God, not even the ones we should be closest to. Arm's length, we keep them at bay. And we don't care about anybody else but ourselves. The tendency is to draw inward, to look at only ourselves, to become self-centered. And this is what's been going on throughout history. The Israelites get captured and are sent to Babylon, and they're suffering, and God is starting to provide a way out for them. Later on in the book of Isaiah, they're freed. They go back to their homeland to worship in their temple once again, to try to pick up the pieces to become God's people again. Ezra and Nehemiah try to build the temple walls and the temples and bring the people together as a unit again so that they would have no fear of losing what they have. Anxiety can lead to self-centeredness.